This lesson is on the Camera Raw processor in Photoshop Elements. This is a little bit hidden in Photoshop Elements. It's very easy to access, but unless you know it's there and how to get to it, it's just kind of hidden. It's not easily seen. And RAW is a camera type, just like JPEG is, only a RAW camera type doesn't compress the file at all, and so it keeps all of that good information. It is the best format that you can get in your camera, and if you're a professional photographer, you would want to consider using it. However, it's not found in point-and-shoot cameras, but that doesn't mean that this lesson isn't for everyone. This lesson will, this Camera Raw processor will also allow you to open up JPEGs, and so you can get some great photo tweaking even for JPEGs in the Camera Raw. Now, the plugin I found it didn't used to come with Photoshop Elements, but I've noticed in recent versions it is already in there. It may need to be updated. They do put out updates every once in a while. And if you go to this URL or just search the internet, which is how I found it, or go to this adobe.com downloads. I saw it in the sidebar and look for updates. Here's what it looked like in the sidebar when I first found it, and you just install it. It's probably already in your program, but if it's not, you can go there and install it. It is per version, so you need to find your right version of Photoshop Elements. And I have this written tutorial here that's rather long. In fact, it's 7 pages long that I've detailed that we will be going through. And the reason we're going to go through this at this point is because we've just done the popping photos where we've used some of these settings in the editor. Everything except for like a few things, but most everything in the Camera Raw is something that you can learn to understand the concept of in, oh goodness, why am I yawning, in the regular editor. So let's go, instead of reading these directions here, let's go into Photoshop and just open up a JPEG in the Camera Raw. So I have my Photoshop Elements here. I'm going to go to the File drop-down menu and Open As. I've made a copy of my image. Here's the original because I don't want to risk using, editing on an original. And then in this drop down or pop up, whichever it goes, menu, we want to find the one that says Camera Raw, and that's it. Click open and you're going to see the Camera Raw editor. Now I can't quite get this all on my screen, so I may have to be moving it around a little bit so that you can see it. So let's go see what's next. Here is a picture of it where I did it for this tutorial. The top of the screen, the first one is the zoom tool. So let's move this back over a little bit. Here is your zoom tool. So if you've got this activated, you can zoom in and out. Hold down the Alt key to zoom out, and of course you can also zoom in and out down here. It's good to look at the detail in your photo by really zooming in. The next one is the hand tool to scroll around on the image inside the preview area. So if you have the hand tool selected, you can do this and move around inside the area. The eyedropper tool sets the white balance. Click on white in the photo in the preview to tell PSE this point is white. You can also click on a mid-gray point. This is a little difficult on mine. The only white I have really might be in the sky. So let's get the eyedropper and just click. Looks like this might be, click on it. The clicked area is too bright, so please click on a less bright neutral area. Okay, let's try a different part of the cloud. Wow, well, I guess if I had a that's interesting. I don't have many other colors. Well, this has worked before, but that's what that's for. Interesting. Crop tool. The next one is the crop tool, and I think you pretty much know how to use it. If I zoom out and would select a different area, and I could crop it, but I am going to hit the escape key to get out of it. Then the next one is the straighten tool, which you are familiar with, and this is already a straight photo, I believe, but we can go like this and you can see there's the cropping again. It actually activates the crop tool in order to straighten it. I'm going to hit the escape key to get out of that, and that's not going to actually apply until you save your image. And we actually have some other tools in here. I guess I didn't go over those. We have red eye removal and opening the preference dialog box, and then this is rotating 90 degrees right and left. Oh, I do have it. Preference dialog, rotate, there it is. At the bottom of the screen, we already reviewed this. You can set the zooming here using the plus and the minus or the little flyout. You have a help button, a save image button, which saves it as a DING extension, a .dng, which is a type of open raw format and is non-destructive. I've spelled destructive wrong. Oh. There we go. You can set it at 8 bits depth or 16 bits. So if we go in here to review, we have the flyout arrow here to select a size, and we have save image, which will save it as a DING file, and that will be one that you can only open up in Camera Raw in order to edit. You have the choice of 8-bit or 16-bit. And if we move on over here, we have 3, the done, the cancel, and the open image. Done saves changes to the file, but will not open the image in the Photoshop Elements editor to save it as other file formats. Cancel just closes it out without any changes, and open opens the image in Photoshop Elements editor. So this is the one I prefer to do, because then from there you can make more edits and do a save as into another camera type like JPEG. On the right of the screen, click Previews to be able to see the changes as you work, and so that is right here. You want to just leave that selected. This toggles full screen mode, and you can hit F on your keyboard in order to do that too, as it says here. Okay, now we're going to look at the histogram that's on the right side. The left triangle, that's this one up here, kind of looks like an eyedropper too, is the shadow clipping warning, and you can also turn this on by hitting U on your keyboard. This shows you the underexposed areas. They show up as blue on the preview, so we can do that right now. We click this and I don't see any. I need to get back on a different tool. Or we could click U on the keyboard and none of those, it's not showing up as blue anywhere. Or we could click this one, aha, and it shows up as red. So there are some overexposed areas in my photo. Or you can, the right triangle is highlight clipping warning, or you can just click O on your keyboard and they show up as red. So if you want to see where it's being clipped, that's all you do with these, and you toggle them on and off. And you might want to have it on when you're moving the sliders so that you can not clip it things. You can see that's probably why my set white balance wasn't working, because I was doing it in a clipped area. So we might see it's not working because probably because I've overexposed already. So let's look at this a little bit more. It's a little bit different than some of the other histograms that we've been looking at. You may remember I've told you there are two types of histograms. One is the luminance, which is just your black to white, and one is your RGB, and this one is RGB. And I have a little graph here. When it's red, then it's just showing the reds. When it's green, it's just showing the greens, and when it's blue, it's just showing the blue. Where it's white, all three of those colors are overlapping. So in this instance, right here, it has some red, blue, green, and white in this pixel area. If it's cyan, it has blue and green overlapping. If it's magenta, it has red and blue overlapping, and if it's yellow, it has red and green overlapping. So yellow's easiest to spot right here. So in this area, we have yellow and green pixels being applied, and then you can see the green takes over and goes up even higher. Where it's yellow, we have red and green. So where it's yellow, we have some red pixels, but we also and they only go up to where the top of the yellow is, but because the green extends further, we also have green pixels. So it's just another way of looking at a graph of pixels, and it's per color. The RGB counters show the color value as you hover over a point on the preview with the mouse. So if we go back here and you hover over it anywhere with the mouse, as we hover over this, watch these numbers up here change. And so you can see right here at, I guess, I wish we had a better pointer than just the hand or the zoom, but if I hover right here, this particular point has an RGB of 109, 135, and 150. And you can see here there's also the f-stop, the shutter speed, the ISO speed, and 28 millimeters with my lens. So as we continue on, the first tab, and by talking about first tab, I am referencing this tab here for basic, and here's a second, and a third tab. We have the white balance section. So white balance can be set using the eyedropper as shown above. In the alternative, you can use a predefined value in the custom drop-down box with similar options as in your camera. You have auto, daylight, cloudy, shady, tungsten, fluorescent, or flash. The as shot leaves the setting as it was taken in the camera. So if we go over here and look at this in this drop-down box, we can choose, well, why am I not seeing those choices? When I did this, custom, I'm not sure why, but then you can go ahead. Here's auto if you want to let it do it, but you see if I let it do it, I've got some more clipping. Let's go ahead and review. Temperature controls the color temperature in kelvins. The cooler temperatures are bluer to compensate for yellowish lighting, and the warmer temperatures are yellower to compensate for bluish ambient lighting. So if you have something that's too yellowish from lighting from the ceiling, then you can adjust it by adding more blue to it to get rid of the yellow. If you have something that's more bluish from maybe some ambient type lighting, then you can adjust it by making it warmer by adding more yellows. And so that is right here, and see this way is more blue, and you see we get a lot more clipping if we go blue. And the same way here, I'm going to turn that off. You see we're blowing out the sky by moving this around. But you can see this way you get bluer, and this way you get warmer in the yellows. And then the tinting controls the green or the magenta tint. And so you can see here it goes this way to get more green, and this way to get more magenta. So you can tweak your, if you don't get the white balance right in your camera, that's what these settings are for. And now we're going to review the next section, brightness and contrast section. The auto or default, select to let the program decide the optimal setting. You can use the exposure, which controls the overall brightness with great effects to the highlights. This is the equivalent of f-stop. So we have here, we can choose auto to let it choose the settings, and that would be a good thing to start with, but then we can go ahead and tweak it some more, and you're going to see this changed it from a negative 0.10. This is like changing it 0.1 of an f-stop if you're changing the exposure compensation on your camera. But we can move it down, and you can see and watch the histogram, or move it up and make it a lot brighter, but you see we've lost the sky now. So the default was somewhere right there that it found. The recovery brings back the clipped highlights. Now this is something really valuable in the Camera Raw that you can't really get in the editor. So if we turn on and we see these clipped highlights, recovery will bring them back. So you would just move this up until they go away. Isn't that great? That's one of the two best things in the Camera Raw editor. Love that. The fill light brings back clip shadows without brightening the black. So if you had on here and you had any clip shadows, which we don't, you could add a fill light and it will fix the clipped shadows. The black controls areas of black, gives the impression of contrast. It affects the shadows similar to using the black pointer slider when you're in your levels. And so here is, adding black if you want to add that pop of black in there, which is really cool. I like adding the contrast with the black. Brightness controls the brightness or darkness with great effect to the shadows. And so here's your brightness. Oh, but see, when we move our brightness up, we get that clipping again. So then we'd have to recover the clipping. And can't quite recover it all. There we go, if we want to brighten it up a little bit. Contrast controls contrast with great effects on midtones. Midtone to dark areas become darker. Middle to light areas become lighter. And so that's contrast, which we've learned some in Photoshop Elements Editor already. And now we have the next section, the saturation section. Clarity, similar to the unsharp mask. Zoom in, increase the slider until halos near edges reduce. So if you see halos, I don't think I'm going to see them here, but we can zoom in, and you want to be zoomed in pretty far to make sure you're, looking at it really closely. And this is going to be more in effect. Oh wow, I could see a difference moving it really up, but that's clarity. But you'll see that more of a difference if you have halos around objects. Since we just have a landscape photo here, it's not as effective. Here's the other one I absolutely love. We talked about it in the Making Colors Pop. This is controls the strength of all colors for saturation, but if you use the Vibrance, it controls only the lower saturated colors. So if something's already saturated high, it leaves it alone. This prevents skin tones from becoming oversaturated. I wish they would have an adjustment for this in Photoshop Elements, but you can move this. Let's zoom out. You can move, here's where we were, and you can move this and you can see it's leaving these greens that are already bright there, and it's brightening up everything else. If I move the saturation slider, you can see how it doesn't do as good of a job. Look at all the stuff that's way oversaturated. So I would just leave the saturation alone and hit this Vibrance one in here, and oh, I love it. But don't overdo it, because it can be overdone too. Get it right in there. The Vibrance slider is my friend. I love that. The second tab is for detail, and you get your sharpening in here. You have the amount or level of sharpening. The radius finds more or less edges in your picture, and the detail controls halos, and masking protects non-edging areas from sharpening, such as faces. High number sharpens less. And so if you click on the second area here, that's these sliders here for sharpening. Once again, zoom in if you're doing these things. And then we have the noise reduction, which is the luminance, controls the grayscale, black to white noise, and the color controls the color noise. So we don't have much noise in here, but if we wanted to control the grayscale noise, we could move that one, and if we wanted to control the color noise, we could move that one. It even says here, for more accurate preview it in 100%. It recommends going all the way to 100% to use these. And the Camera Calibration tab, which is here, which has this drop down menu, and there's nothing in there. The Adobe Camera Raw, which has the initials of ACR, which is the editor that we're working in, uses color profiles to process raw images. The ACR profile, these profiles are compatible with older versions, and they're basically, I would recommend going here to read more about color profiles, but you can download color profiles and install them, and here are some of the folders where you can install them. This is something that's much more advanced, and I never use it, but if you're a professional photographer, you might want to, but if you're a professional photographer, you would have the full version of Photoshop anyway. But I am going to give you this PDF here on how to use this. So if I want now, I can click Open Image, because I think I have all my changes that I like, and it's going to open it up into Photoshop Elements, where I can go ahead now and make more changes to it if I want, but you can see it already looks pretty good. Love, love, love it. And I can from here go and save it as a JPEG. That's the only way to get it saved again as a JPEG, by opening it up in the editor. Your other choices save it as Camera Raw formats. So I want you to take one of your images, maybe even the one you just used in the Color Pop photo lesson, as I did, to compare the two different ways of editing. And I look forward to seeing your photos and your edits in this lesson.